Your call has been forwarded to the automated upload system of
The American Drill Report.
At the tone, please record your message.
All right, so you are already familiar with call forward, so I'll just jump right in. It being the first time you're doing an episode, we're going to talk about the simple stuff. So obviously you're very, very good at the thing that we participate in, and you've had a very solid track record for executing at the highest level. Talk a little bit about your personal philosophy on practicing and preparing for competition where other people might not have the same understanding. Like everybody knows, you got to practice a lot, you got to get your reps in, you got to focus on the details. So not that kind of stuff, but what about your personal philosophy makes your understanding of the handling of this equipment so fundamentally different that it consistently puts you ahead of the pack every time you compete?
So I agree with focusing on the details, like taking the time to narrow in hand pins and like watching your feet. I get all that. And I think people that can do that extremely well are leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of people. The thing that I do a little differently when it comes to practice, I'll hammer it out multiple times and I'll go and do practice leading up to, so months in advance. I go out and just do one or two runs and kind of just focus on cardio. But when it gets close, I usually try to have a routine set pretty far in advance. There's not an exact science to it because it kind of changes with each year. Some years I may have practiced for like 2 months, and other years, so it just depends. But one thing that I live by is if I can go, or if you can go from sitting on your couch watching TV, or just go from doing absolutely nothing and go out and do a run of the routine that you have set, you're pretty well off when it comes to performance time. So I live by uh, getting the time in and being able to do runs from going from doing absolutely nothing to going to from 0 to 100. And if you can't do that, whatever move you're messing up on, you're probably going to mess up on it in show day if you're not giving yourself enough time to practice the specific move. So I'm more into getting the routine executed perfectly week, like a week leading up, instead of trying to continually add stuff. So that's why you've seen it while during practice, and my routines will change pretty consistently because sometimes certain moves that I want to have, I can't really do 10 out of 10 times. So if I can't get it the 10 out of 10 times, that move will be taken out because I don't want to risk. The risk isn't equivalent to the reward for whatever move I do.
So it sounds like you're talking a lot about day over day consistency rather than rep over rep consistency. If you have enough prep time over a long enough span of days and weeks and months, you've got plenty of time to really iron out, flesh out everything that you want to do, how you want to do it. Whereas just getting in a lot of reps in a shorter time is never going to be as helpful. Now that said, how do you think your routine design is affected by your understanding of what the judges want and starts, stops, and speed overall? I think something that we noticed this year was that the routines that were, or the routine, I guess, that won. No, the routines that were at the very, very top. Like, finals was Trey, you, Ethan, look at me, and you can see pretty clearly in that spread and in prelims that the person who excelled the most was the person who stopped the rifle the best the most times. Is stopping the rifle something that you focus on in the forefront of scripting, or is it kind of just a byproduct of creating a routine?
Um, it's hard to really give a concise answer on that because, again, you've seen practices where one run through will be really sloppy and kind of bad, and then the next one will be very good. So yes, I try to keep this like the stopping power at the forefront. It's when building a routine, when creating something new. Um, for me, I've been very lucky with being able to use the same scripting, use the same march out on the floor that I've been doing for the last decade almost, that I don't really need to change anything. But when it comes to start and stop, you have to play it like you want to have a performance that an average person that doesn't know what drill is can watch and recognize that what you're doing is hard without them having to know how heavy the rifle is. Like, yes, the rifle is heavy, but when it comes to creating a routine, you want to make the rifle and the movements look effortless because you are competing against other people that can do that. I think that's the big important part of it.
So, on that note, as far as like staging to best demonstrate difficulty, despite how difficult something might actually be, what are your thoughts on staging versus difficulty, or aerial difficulty specifically? I think that you and I would both agree that Ethan Rader had a substantially more difficult routine than anybody on the floor. And even with what was essentially a perfect run for him, he got third. What, where do you think the balance is for difficulty versus execution and staging?
I think the best example of execution and moves that has won is Zyko. But Zyko, I can't, it's hard to consider him in the metric because of who it is and what he's able. Yeah,
Very true.
it's hard to give him a space in that because
Is
he like,
just so exceptional.
yes, it's hard to put him against other people because he is so good at what he does. Um, but when it comes to like this past year, uh it's hard for me to say because I thought Ethan beat me for sure. But I when you take a step back and look at it, you have to look at what is easy for the judges to read. So you can do a bunch of tricks and do them really well, but if you just do some if you just keep doing stuff and you don't really have dynamics, speed ups and slow downs, if you don't do something really hard and then pause. Like for Ethan, he does his triple whip in that corner and he doesn't really give us, he just does it and then continues to go. Whereas, like, I, man, like if you watch any of the solos from that, the people like myself and Trey will do something that is not as technically hard as a triple Hell's Whip, but we'll catch whatever our difficult move is and kind of pause there for a second instead of moving directly onto the next thing. You got to give the judges a second to breathe and give them a second to be able to judge and actually score what you're doing. because a lot of the times in high school was a big thing for me. I'd be doing some really cool routine. And if you go back and watch the videos, the judges will be looking down at their scorecards. So that's where a lot of it came in, where we worked on doing something big and then pausing and planning for the applause from the audience, whether there's applause or not.
Yeah, no, that's it's so funny watching Ethan as somebody who spins rifles because like all of us know like holy hell, this is insane. This is absolutely nuts what he's doing. But all of these amazing things just kind of blend together and they look so easy to a judge that it just kind of goes over their head and it's like, all right, well, this is really good, but when compared to excellent staging of simpler moves, there's just no contest at the end of the day. Aside from all of the uniform details, the reporting procedure details, the march on, march off details, the rifle execution alone is still much less of a rifle spinning competition than I think a lot of people realize, and a lot more of a very, very particular kind of pageant. But that said, you had you mentioned stopping or scripting for stops for applause, whether or not there is any. And that's something that you and I did a lot with Tandem. We would do something, and then I would literally say out loud, applause, applause complete, as like our vocal cue for that pause. And then we would continue our runs from there. And I feel like despite the mistakes that you and I both equally made in our tandem, I think that helped us a lot to have a decent run overall.
I think when it comes down to building, I think being able to take a step back and really question yourself on, is what I'm doing here important? Is this giving off what I want to give off? And if you don't know the answer to that, maybe you're recording a video and watching it yourself. Because we've done it a lot where we'll do something that we think's really cool, and then either you or I will say, it feels cooler than it looks. And then you go back and video it, and it actually did not look as cool as you thought, or it's not as difficult as you. Yeah.
With all too many things, there's so many things that feel like they look so cool, but like they're just kind of underwhelming, or the difficulty or the cool technical element is just so hidden in the rotation of the rifle. The golden rule that everybody hates in this activity is just because you can doesn't mean you should. And like it's so exhausting to have to tell yourself no on the things that you think are the coolest for a routine for the sake of being competitive. But I mean, that also, there's plenty of people that will go in with something that they know is a less competitive routine for the sake of artistic expression, which is also excellent. But
And I think it's hard to really grasp routine construction, especially if somebody's coming from competing at the national level from high school to graduation. It's hard to give advice for that because it's not something that you can really know how it feels until you do it. Because Worlds, yes, it's the same style of competition, it's the same format, but it feels completely different because you're competing against people that are adults and really care about this activity. It's not some kid that was placed in it because their high school had to have solos.
yeah, and as much as we continue to do this activity and kind of nitpick the details of why whatever standings came out to be what they were and try to figure out an exact formula for the thing, as close as we've gotten, we really still are learning so much every year, certainly more than we could ever unpack in a 15-minute phone call. But there's so much theory to creating a good performance, competitive routine, to being a competitor, and we just keep learning more and more every year. But
I think one of the big things that's important, and I was telling Ethan all season, is to go back and watch the people that have won because they all have something in common. They all have their own little quirks. They all stand out in their own little way. Going back and rewatching will give you the biggest insight on how to create a routine that wins. Besides Zyko's year that he won, because that's just
that
there's nothing
is
you could take from that.
that is very true. The year that I won, I literally sat down and watched all of the previous solo winners, and then I started scripting, and then it worked out. But
That's just the way to do it.
we are just over the 15-minute mark. Do you have any final thoughts on routine construction or competitive approach?
Um, just because if you show up your first year and you don't do well, that doesn't mean it's time to quit and find another hobby. It's time for you to take a step back and look at what you're doing and see how you can dynamically change yourself and your routine or your drill style to fit in with winning. And if you don't care about winning, keep doing what you're doing. That's
Word.
it. That's all I got.
Well, good stuff, and I'll see you later.
That's you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Stay dialed in. You could be the next call.